You know what bums me out? Discovering a cool looking JRPG only to realize that it's not available on modern hardware. Absolutely soul crushing. That's why remakes like Star Ocean The Second Story are so important. Remakes can take a much older title and make it not only palatable for modern audiences, but downright irresistible. Rebalance this, streamline this, update the visuals, everything's wonderful. Hi, my name's Brandon, and while I love remakes, I have one burning question in my mind. Should every JRPG get the full remake treatment? I'm leaning toward no, and I'd like to explore this with you today. Also, I want to talk about JRPGs I love, as well as a few I'd love to see come out on modern hardware so I can finally play them. I know we've all gotten a little confused at times about what counts as a remake or a remaster, so here's how I'm approaching all of this. It could be a port, like Valkyrie Profile Lenneth, and add a couple of quality of life features. It could be a remaster, like Disgaea Complete with updated sprites. It could be a full remake, like Star Ocean The Second Story R, and rock my world. Would I be unhappy if every JRPG got a remake that knocks my socks off? Of course not. But game development is a lengthy process, and remakes typically take a good while longer than remasters and ports. There's an opportunity cost at play. Committing all of those resources to a remake could mean that other JRPGs from the same developer or publisher get delayed or dropped altogether. The issue then is which should be ported, which should be remastered, and which should be remade. Ports are great. It's often the least work-intensive option to get an older game onto modern hardware. It's also a sort of bare minimum in terms of keeping games accessible to modern audiences. A straight port is just going to get the game running on new hardware. That is nice, but at this point I think people expect at least a little in the way of quality of life changes. I spent an entire video talking about how happy I was to see save states and a rewind function in the PS4 port of Valkyrie Profile Lenneth. It doesn't take much to make an old JRPG more appealing. Our expectations of games today are different from 20 years ago, and ports with quality of life changes are a beautifully simple way of bridging that gap. I'd love to see Breath of Fire 3 and 4 get ports with quality of life features like encounter rate modifiers, fast forward, rewind, save states, and the like. They have a timeless aesthetic that I would be perfectly happy leaving as is, and that's a big part of why I think they'd be great as ports. I played a little of Breath of Fire 4 on my Vita many years ago, but I got distracted and never went back to it. I've always wanted to see everything it has to offer, and a port like this could be just the thing I need to make that happen. Let me be a little greedy for a moment here. I'd also love to see ports of Infinite Undiscovery and Lost Odyssey on non-Xbox platforms. It actually does look like you can still purchase them digitally for Xbox and play them on modern hardware thanks to backward compatibility, but come on! I don't have an Xbox. Even just a Windows version would be wonderful. Just imagine being able to buy these to play on a Steam Deck. That's the dream right there. Remasters go beyond ports in that they usually include surface-level graphical upgrades. They might have the same kind of quality of life features as ports, and they might also rebalance the difficulty. There's no concrete definition for what a remaster is and is not, so we see a lot of variation here. But I like to think of it as a new coat of paint on top of what already existed. Some remasters, like Chrono Cross The Radical Dreamers Edition, even let you switch back and forth between the remastered graphics and the original graphics, which is always a cool option to have. For a lot of people, I think JRPGs from the early days of 3D graphics are prime contenders for remastering. 2D art seems to hold up better over time. There's something about the shift to 3D that makes it hard not to focus on the technical aspects of the visuals. With modern resolution support and improved textures, I think most games would be able to close the gap well enough. I missed out on Radiata Stories on PS2. and in the years since, I have heard nothing but good things about it. But it's never been re-released on another platform. So here I am, hoping that we'll see it get a nice remaster with upgraded textures so I can finally give them my money. There is one series I am particularly curious about. Growlancer. I've only played the PSP entry, Growlancer Wayfarer of Time. One more reason I appreciate my Vita. And the experience just won't let go of me. It was a great game, yes, but it was also somehow both unique and familiar. I can't think of another game that has a blend quite like it, and I want more. But it's not available on modern hardware. Some entries were never even localized into English, adding yet more salt to the wound. Let's just say, my hopes are well managed for this series, but remasters of these JRPGs would be irresistible for me. I know a lot of us are desperate for a remake of Xenogears, and while I would love to see it, I think I could be pretty satisfied with a beefy remaster too. Get some nice quality of life features, a mini-map, make dungeons easier to move around with more visual cues and easier platforming, add an objective log, made some big upgrades to the 3D visuals while preserving the heart of the character sprites and portraits. Okay, just thinking about this makes me want a full remake. Forget everything I've been talking about here. Xenogears Remake, please. Real quick, if you like what I'm doing here, I would humbly ask you to consider subscribing for more and giving the video a like to tell the world there's value here. Thanks for hearing me out. Now let's get back into it. Xenogears aside, there are a couple I would really like to see get remakes. I picked them specifically because of how big of an impact on the experience I think a full remake could have. Sure, it would be great just to have access to them on modern hardware as ports or remasters, but I see so much potential in these games and I want to see them shine. Sometimes I'm really in the mood for a JRPG with a darker atmosphere, and with all of the technology we have today, all the fancy lighting and immersive sound design, games like Digital Devil Saga 1 and 2 could take a big leap forward. Make it dark. Make the lighting a major gameplay element. Get some surround sound going on to let you hear the enemies moving around in the dungeon, sneaking up on you. Lean into the creepy enemy designs and behaviors. Kudelka was all about the atmosphere. Even its turn-based battle system on a grid could get pretty tense with its freakishly strong enemies and their unsettling designs. It leaned into the horror aspect more than any other JRPG I know, and I was into it. And its successor Shadow Hearts in the Dollhouse area? Oh, yes, please! If we could get a JRPG with an atmosphere as potent as the remakes of Resident Evil 4 and Silent Hill 2, that would be incredible. JRPGs like Digital Devil Saga and Kudelka are just begging to be reimagined and remade. It is so nice when we do get the full remake treatment for a JRPG. With that said, I don't always need the highest effort version. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is simply enough. I'm happy to see more incredible remakes, but give me a nice straightforward remaster or port, and I'm plenty satisfied. At the end of the day, all I really want is to be able to play these games. If we can make that possible without spending years and years trying to recreate each one from the ground up, I'm all for it. Alright, go find some fun. Peace.